on blast.
And we are live. This is the Wrap It Up on Blast Raps post-game show. As always, my name is Sheldon Alexander, and this episode of Wrap It Up is brought to you by Clean Cuts Barbershop, 2013 Danforth Avenue in the East End of Toronto. Clean Cuts, the multicultural barbers that will always keep you fresh for any and all occasions. So go see Skip and the crew. As a wise man once said, tell them that I sent ya. Check them out on Instagram at Clean Cuts Toronto or give them a call 416-917-4833 to book your appointments now. Huge shouts to Clean Cuts. I don't do this enough. I know I read the ad off the front end, but huge shouts to Clean Cuts for rocking with us and sponsoring this podcast all year long. Huge shouts to Skip and the crew. Really appreciate making this Wrap It Up podcast a thing, legitimately. Huge shouts to Skip and the crew. Huge shouts to you, the fans, for joining us, whether you're live on Twitter at Shell Alexander, as you have been after each and every Toronto Raptors game. Really appreciate you there. We take your comments and questions. Same thing goes for Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. Take your comments and questions for both me and co-host tonight, Q. What's going on? Raptors win 123-109 to take a 2-1 lead in the NBA Finals. Q, how you feeling?
Does it still feel weird saying that?
Yeah.
NBA Finals.
That's why I had to
Raptors
pause.
in the NBA
I had to
Finals.
pause and say it with such emphasis.
Raptors up in the series. This is not NBA 2K. It's not live. This is real life, people. NBA Finals.
Hey, we've been saying it all year. We've been saying it every big game. We've been saying it throughout the playoffs. What a time to be alive. Raptors win 123-109. And, you know, high game to Steph Curry, 47 points in this game. Steph Curry did his thing, or did what you'd expect an MVP player to do. 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Steph did all he could. When you go to the Raptors side of things, I think this is what makes the Raptors team, okay? Kawhi Leonard finishes with 30. No matter what, you can pencil in Kawhi Leonard for 30 points. But tonight's game was about the other starters. That was a help the Raptors have been needing. In any game that they really lost, it's about what did the others do. Yeah. You look at this game, Danny Green gives you 18, Kyle Lowry gives you 23, Marc Gasol gives you 17, Siakam gives you 18. When the Raptors are getting that kind of production queue, can any team beat them, regardless of who's in or out of the lineup for Golden State?
Not a chance, because the defense is always there, right? We've never questioned the Raptors' defense or effort on defense. It is their shooting from the others.
Yeah.
Right? You always get one, maybe 2 guys that are putting up their regular numbers.
Yeah.
But again, in case you didn't hear me before, welcome to the playoffs. Welcome to the NBA Finals, Danny Green's 3-point shot.
Yeah. We were waiting for this game, right? The Danny Green game. You just know at certain points it's coming. And after the series that he had against the Bucks, where he struggled for the majority of it from the offensive end, but you just know when the bright lights come out, Danny Green loves the NBA Finals. 6 3-pointers made by Danny Green. He was 6 of 10. Kyle Lowry was 5 of 9 from 3. And when the Raptors are getting shots like that, even add in Freddie's 3 of 6, including the massive, I guess, clincher dagger at the end from Fred Van Vliet Sr.
Should have been an and one.
Yep, should have been an and one. Would have been if his name was Steph Curry.
Yep.
If he was a light-skinned dude in the other jersey, would have been an and two. But massive game from the Raptors in their supporting cast. But really, here's the thing. Here's what everyone's going to talk about. And when I say everyone, I mean the American media for sure. Yep. Because the angle to this whole thing is already being slanted in terms of, oh, well, who's injured, who's not. So we can't get too far in this podcast without mentioning the fact that Klay Thompson was out of this game. He did not play due to his hamstring issue. And it was a weird day because everyone was trying to figure out, is he in, is he out? Then early on in the day, it broke that the Warriors brass, they preferred him to sit out this game because they anticipate it being a longer series and they don't want to lose him for that series just to try to get him to play in game 3. Rest it, get the couple extra days, come back in game 4, see how that goes. But Klay was pushing back against that.
Of course.
But
as you would expect.
For sure, as we thought, especially after he was talking so much trash in the hallway after the last game. What did he say? Light work? Is that what he said in the hallway after game 2? But Either way, Klay Thompson doesn't play. We already know Kevin Durant's out. Kevon Looney is out, which normally isn't that big of a deal. But the fact that you're then going to all Boogie Cousins or Andrew Bogut minutes, that might be an issue for Golden State. So the health of Golden State was going to be a problem, and I'm sure is going to be a thing that most people end up talking about. I'm going to start by asking you this, Q. What did you make of the Warriors with no Klay Thompson? Do you think that is a fair excuse for them? Is it a thing where it's like, hey, you kind of punt game 3 and hope that he and Durant come back?
I mean, it's an excuse, but is it a valid one is more the question, right? Because, I mean, think about it. Klay, Steph had, 47, I believe, right?
Yeah.
If Klay's on the field, if Klay's on the court, what does Steph have? Does Steph take all those shots? Does the ball in Steph's hands, right? Do any of those players, aside from the attention that they get? Because my thing is, with Steph was getting double teamed all game because Steph obviously is the only one who is really, right? So, and that's the same impact that Klay has, right? Because Klay's a shooter, so he's going to get attention. That's going to leave the others for open shots.
Yeah.
Air ball, Draymond Green. Air ball, Draymond Green.
Air ball, Boogie Cousins.
Boogie Cousins, air ball, Quinn Cook.
Yeah.
So the others didn't, none of them had that game, right? It's not like they were hitting, missing contested shots. Those are wide open shots, right?
Sorry, the Raptors were disrespecting
Sorry,
Andre Iguodala by leaving him wide open from 3.
Yeah.
For the record, Andre Iguodala in this game was 2 for 6 from 3. Finished with 11 points in this game.
Yeah. So you input Klay, right? Steph, maybe we'll just say Steph had a good game. He was shooting well. So say Steph had 30.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And even if you give Klay 25, where are the other points coming from?
Yeah.
Right?
Which was my thing coming in because everyone's like, oh, no Klay. Well, Steph's going for 50. And I was like, cool. Steph goes for 50, but where's the other 50 or where's the other 60 points coming from that you're going to need to win this game? Because again, as our guy Mikey pointed out in the chat, the Warriors have scored 109 points in every game this series. Yeah. The difference has been the 2 wins the Raptors have had, the Raptors have hit shots. Yeah. When the Raptors didn't hit shots, they finished with 104, and that was a game 2 loss. So again, Golden State struggled to get to that 109, and that was pretty much in garbage time, right? When they got to that point. This game was pretty much over. And I know the narrative will get lost in the second quarter. Raptors went through a huge drought. They couldn't get any buckets. And credit to the Warriors for hanging around and hanging around. But I would like to give credit to the one and only Doris Burke. Because Doris Burke did her hit to start this game. And Doris Burke actually mentioned how Klay Thompson got hurt. Because I'm going to ask you to go back to all the talk you heard about Klay Thompson's injury over the past few days. And people just keep saying, oh, Klay Thompson's out. Poor Warriors. Now they're missing this person. But are we supposed to feel bad for Klay Thompson because he got hurt trying to flop and do the splits in the air and landed awkwardly because he didn't flop into anybody? He flopped into Casper and injured himself, injured his hamstring. And now we're supposed to feel sorry for him? Like, shouts to Doris Burke for actually mentioning that fact, because I feel like that was a part that was being left out. Like, that's a dumb play. Very dumb. Like, we're Klay's kind of getting off the hook for this, and we're like, oh no, when's he coming back? When's he coming back?
And
that's a bonehead play.
At that point, aren't they up double digits? I believe at that point, because that was the third.
The Warriors were up?
The Warriors were up.
Yeah,
so it's not like you needed that extra bucket because you're trying to make a comeback. You're just milking it at that point. Right?
Yeah.
It's an unnecessary non-basketball play.
Exactly.
You got hurt. Boo-hoo.
And you cost yourself that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the other part in this. And again, I keep talking about the U.S. media, but I had to shout out Doris Burke for that because I thought that's an important part that we can't keep leaving out. Like, that's a bonehead play by Klay Thompson that costs his team. Right. Like, that's just dumb. And sometimes on the counter, I feel like there's a lot of Raptors fans that sometimes wonder why they see Kawhi Leonard will pump fake and he'll let the flyby go. And Raptors fans are always asking, why doesn't Kawhi jump into the guy and get free throws? 1, it's an unnatural basketball play. 2, he got hurt, if you remember, while taking a jump shot and landing awkwardly on someone else's foot. I wouldn't be in such a rush either to be trying to beg for calls by jumping into dudes and having the possibility of you landing awkwardly. Like, I'm okay with that if you're Kawhi Leonard. I like the way that he just gets busy. And if he's going to the cup and getting fouled, cool. But he's not trying to do the Klay Thompson or the Steph Curry, which they gave him that bailout call late as well. So one, I'm not going to feel sorry for the Golden State Warriors because Klay Thompson injured himself. Two, how many All-Stars do you need? Because here's the thing. Jason McIntyre, who makes a lot of appearances on Fox Sports 1, Jason McIntyre tweeted this before Game 3, which I found was very weird because you're already making excuses for the series in Game 3.
Yep.
Okay? He tweeted this. So when do we put an asterisk by this NBA Finals if Toronto wins? Best player, leading scorer, Durant, hasn't played. Third leading scorer, Klay, now out. Looney out means 3 of the top 7 players out. So the built-in excuse and the narrative from the American side is clearly still, oh, the Warriors are hurt. The heart of a champion. They're fighting and clawing and giving all they can. Yep. But I ask, how many All-Stars do you need? Because we're talking about asterisks. Did people put an asterisk beside the Warriors' first championship against LeBron James when Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving were injured? I don't remember anybody saying one of the Warriors' championships have an asterisk. No. That's not a narrative I hear. I hear Warriors dynasty, no? Yeah. Because Steph Curry, by my calculations, still has 2 All-Stars in Draymond Green and Boogie Cousins, plus a Finals MVP in Andre Iguodala. Yep. Meanwhile, in that series, LeBron had Delly, Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, and who else was on that run? Right, and dragged them to 6 games against the Warriors. So this asterisk stuff is dumb, and regardless of who's out there, you gotta play the game. And that's a media narrative. The players aren't caught up in that BS. The coaches aren't caught up in that BS. That's all media just spin and talk on a day-to-day basis. The Raptors aren't, like, do we think, and because the other thing you hear is you got to get your wins now before Durant comes back. Do you think Kawhi's sitting in the locker room like, oh no, I hope Durant doesn't come back? Does that strike you as something like, I don't know. Media narratives are so funny to me, but bottom line, let's move away from that. 2-1 series lead for the Raptors, 123-109. I mentioned the high scorers already. I mentioned the injuries from the Warriors side. And I guess the next thing to talk about is the only reason why this game was somewhat close in the middle of it was the Raptors' second quarter. Okay? Raptors' second quarter, they started with a lineup of Kyle, Fred VanVleet, Danny Green, Serge, and Pascal against Boogie, Jerebko, Quinn Cook, Iggy, and Livingston. They started off well with Steph on the bench.
6-0 run, wasn't it, to start?
Yes, they were +5 in the 2:18 that Steph was on the bench while Kawhi was also resting. Right. And their lead was up to 12. But for that whole second quarter, the lead was at 10. It got to 12. They couldn't get it to 14. They couldn't get it to 16. It would go down to 6. And then they'd get it back up to 10. What happened to the Raptors, and how do these droughts, in your opinion, what happens in those droughts, and why do they have such long stretches that just look so ugly at times? In a game that they probably should have been up 16 at half, they went to the half only up 8. What happened?
I think it's too much. They stopped running plays. It's too much ISO ball. It's too much, 2 guys on one side of the court running a pick and roll.
Everyone's standing around.
And everybody else standing around, right? So once you make the initial stop on that, now they're scrambling. Yeah. Right? Or it's pass the ball to Kawhi. We all know Kawhi is going to get double teamed. It's not triple teamed. But everybody just runs to the 3-point line. Everybody. Yeah. Right? Whereas nobody's cutting. There's no Siakam cut to the basket. Yeah. There's no, everybody just standing around saying, well, here goes Kawhi. He's going to do it again. The offense stops.
The offense definitely stalls.
Right? And especially when you're playing a team like Golden State, even without their best player and their
third best
player.
Sure.
These guys don't really miss shots. You know what I mean? Like, they don't, you know what I mean? Like, they have an offense, right? Steph having the game like he is, right? And all your attention now on Steph. I mean, Iggy's not gonna shoot, 7 of 8. But he's going to hit 2 of 6. Yeah. And if he hits that one open shot during that drought, now you have to, it cuts into that lead.
Definitely. And I agree with you. I just think they get into these droughts and they don't really know where the offense is going to come from. But you kind of still see the brilliance of Kawhi Leonard because the lead will get down to like 6 and he'll then bang in a 3. Or he'll get to the free throw line to like stop the run. And Steve Kerr said it in his in-between quarter interview. He said they just couldn't get over the hump. Yeah. And it was so true because they would get the game down to like 6. Steph would keep coming and then the Raptors would come the other way, get a bucket to make it 8. It never really got to the 5 points or 3 points, 1 possession game. It was always at that 2 to 3 possessions. And Kawhi Leonard, that's a safety valve of having a player of Kawhi Leonard's caliber is when you get in trouble, you have that guy who can get his own shot off. And as we talk about it all the time, it's a make or miss league at that point. And you're going to trust Kawhi to make more than he misses.
Exactly.
Let's get to some comments here, though, because really appreciate you guys both on Twitter at Shell Alexander or on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. And this is an interesting question. So 7 the High Life says, Sheldon, are you really happy with this win? I'm going to say this. Yes, because it's a win.
Yeah.
As I just detailed about Golden State's first championship, none of you guys ever bring up or remember that Kyrie and Kevin Love didn't play in that. Or no, Kyrie got hurt in game 1, right? Kevin Love got hurt earlier in the playoffs. None of you guys remember that the Cavs were on the brink of winning that game until Kyrie got hurt in game 1. Nobody remembers that.
Or even the fact that, was it, other years where, I think it was Derrick Rose's MVP year where he got hurt before the conference finals.
Yeah.
And LeBron, right, they then went on to the finals, right?
Or the fact that, every time that Russ and KD were healthy, were both healthy, Oklahoma City made it to the conference finals.
Right.
And there were a couple of years there where one of them got hurt, and that kind of messed up the season. Nobody remembers that.
Yeah.
So we, as Raptors fans, can allow the American media to manipulate this into some, oh no, woe is me Warriors. Or we can
even
sit
the
there.
Warriors last year against Houston when Chris Paul went down. So it always...
It's a playoffs. It happens.
At the end of the day, injuries happen. That's the number one thing in sports. Injuries will happen, and you got to get past them.
And I'm also going to say, do you think Kawhi Leonard's healthy? No.
No.
Do you think Kyle Lowry's healthy? No. We know they still haven't played with OG. And if you're going to talk about Kevon Looney being out, being a key for them, OG hasn't played for how long?
Exactly.
Like, injuries happen. And so, am I happy with the win? Yeah, because it's a win in the NBA Finals. And you're halfway to 4 wins. And 4 wins means you win the NBA title. So, yes, I am happy with it.
I know what he was saying. I mean, I'm happy with the win, too. But you're thinking he's under the mindset that, with Klay out, you're supposed to... It doesn't work that way.
The math doesn't work that way. It's not like, oh, well, with Klay, they would have won that game. The math doesn't work that way. Yeah. It's a completely different game. There's different rotations. There's different coverages. Do the Raptors start Fred VanVleet in the second half?
Yeah.
Probably not. Everything's just so different. And it's so difficult to say, well, what if, because it doesn't matter. And in one moment, how quickly do things change?
Yep.
Serge Ibaka looked terrible at one point, and then boom, he reeled off a crazy streak, and you're just like, all right.
Have like 6 blocks in the second half.
It was stupid what Serge Ibaka was doing late. Ibaka came off the bench and gave quality minutes late. He had 6 blocks total in this game in 22 minutes. 6 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, 6 blocks, and 4 fouls. He was all over the stat sheet, right? I don't know.
Couple of those fouls weren't fouls. That he should have had 7 because that block he had a block on McKinney. Mm-hmm. That was a clean block, no body contact, nothing. But they called it. Anytime Serge is in the game and he's giving you energy, I mean, obviously, you know what? He wasn't even forcing shots. Another thing, he was in the game and he knew his role. He played his role, and when he had the shot, he took it. But he didn't force anything. He wasn't taking 3. I think he hit 1 3-pointer because he was wide open and he made the shot. So every time Serge is in the game and he gives you those energy plays,
that's what you need from Serge. And shout out to Mark Jackson, who brought up a very good point. The difference in Serge Ibaka's play was who he was matched up against. When he was in against Cousins, he struggled. And you can clearly tell if you're the Raps, Gasol's the matchup there. Gasol, I don't know what got into him in between the last game and this game, but clearly from the get-go, somebody got in his ear and said, bro, you're better than Boogie Cousins. Go back to last year, and I know Boogie Cousins' numbers were crazy, but that was a testament of what their team was. In terms of overall player, you wouldn't have said that Boogie Cousins is levels above Marc Gasol last season. Marc Gasol in Memphis and Boogie Cousins on New Orleans, or even the years prior. That's a solid matchup. And so a hobbled Boogie Cousins can't be taking you out. And Gasol, aggressive early with paint touches. Normally we've seen Gasol when he's had his success scoring, it was him shooting the open threes, right? This game, no. From the start of the game, it was Marc Gasol in the paint, on the low block, getting busy. And he had 8 points in that first quarter.
Marc Gasol found some foot speed tonight, too. He was blowing by guys.
He was hype. And I think that's key. Gasol played 26 minutes in this game, right? Yep. We've talked about it. If Gasol's at around 30 minutes, that's a much more effective Marc Gasol.
Yep.
And again, not all minutes are created equally. When you're talking about a big fella like Marc Gasol getting out there, hedging on screens, recovering back to the bigs, getting in the paint for help defense, those minutes aren't the same as when he's just standing in the paint guarding Embiid, right? It's different. Exactly. It's a different load of minutes. So great game from Gasol. Again, 17 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 6 of 11 from the floor. He only hit 1 3. Got to the line. Great game from Marc Gasol. Let's get to some more comments here. Gordon says, oh yeah, some poor calls, but the Raps didn't let those calls affect their play. The refs have been a topic of discussion in this series. And if you follow this podcast, you know I never like blaming the refs because I think the refs are horrible on both ways. And I think this game was a perfect example of that. No, the refs were just horrible both ways.
Yeah. I don't think, especially this game, and I remember hearing, I forget who it was, and they said, you know, you either let these guys play or you call everything because you're really killing the momentum of the game. As a fan, you want to see these guys go out there and play, not shoot free throws. You know what I mean? And it's just, I find that the refs too many times would make one bad call, which turns into 3 bad calls because they're making bad makeup calls.
You're chasing yourself,
and it goes and it's on both sides. Yeah. Of course, the Raptors are not getting the benefit of the doubt. When in the 24 years have we ever gotten the benefit of the doubt?
It's not going to happen. We know that.
There are some calls going the other way where I'm like, it's not a foul, right? It's especially not a foul that should be called in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, totally. I think the refs, there were calls where we're just looking at each other like, what was that? Like blatant missed traveling calls on Steph, blatant goaltends by Serge, like just blatant calls that they're missing. Foul calls, of course, everywhere. Just what is a foul, what isn't a foul. For this entire season, I still don't understand.
Carry, what's not a carry.
But for this entire season, I still don't understand what's a shooting foul and what's not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is the swim move... I thought I don't know. I thought the swim move was automatic shots, and then they took that away. I don't know what's going on at all. But
calling backcourt violations from like 2 meters before half court.
That was a weird call.
Right? Luckily, the one ref overturned it, but it's just the refs are just
late calls,
that
the late
bad.
whistles.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was really bad. But again, to Gordon's point, shouts to the Raps for not getting too bogged down by the bad calls and playing through it. Yeah. And you know, Kyle Lowry, who at times has fallen victim to, okay, he's not getting calls, but he's going to continue to try to barrel to the basket to get the calls. Yeah. We've seen him adjust himself in game and adjust to what the refs are calling and not calling. Meaning, if he's not getting that call, he's not really going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And got to give credit to the Raps for that. But more comments here. But Sean says, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard used to this. Now, that gets us to the third quarter. Because I think what happened in the third quarter, the Warriors are still making their runs, right? It's really just Steph Curry, though, because the game's close. But at one point, midway through the third, the Warriors shooting outside of the restricted area. Not even the key. Outside of the restricted area, which for basketball fans might not be familiar. That's the dotted circle. That's the charge line just underneath the rim. That's basically meaning you're getting a dunk or a layup, right? So again, Warriors shooting outside the restricted area, midway through the third, Curry was 9 for 19. Everyone else was 4 of 23. That's pathetic. So the Raptors on the flip side, here comes Danny Green. And Danny Green, when he gets going and he's shooting that rhythm three on the break, it's crazy. The thing I want to ask you about, because it's the thing I love the most, and I call it, I love when I see Kawhi and Danny Green working that Puffy and Mace flow. You know, when you got to the third verse of those Bad Boy songs and the Puffy and Mace flow just going back and forth. And it's like they just have eyes for each other at that point. And Kawhi was making plays. Kawhi was getting steals, running fast breaks. And we said, find Danny, we're both yelling, find Danny, find Danny. He draws the defense, waits that extra second. Danny Green wide open for the three. When that's going down, how cool is that to see it happening in a Raptors uniform?
Yeah.
Danny Green and Kawhi when they get in that mode.
It's just like, it's one of those things where we see Danny in the corner and you're like, Kawhi to Danny, Kawhi to Danny, Kawhi. And it just seems like it comes at the right moment.
Like he knows.
Yeah.
He sees
already knows he's there, but he pretends like he's taking the ball to the basket, draws everybody in, and gives Danny that extra 2 seconds to set himself and prepare for the shot. And it's just like only Pop could teach that. You know what I mean?
But we hadn't seen that in a while, right? Like there would be spurts in the regular season where you would see those two guys single-handedly bring the Raps back in a game where they're making defensive plays and then they're making offensive plays. Because not only was Danny Green like wetting threes, but that chase down block on Quinn Cook.
Yeah.
That's just all heart, all hustle. Those are championship winning plays. And those are the things that make me, kind of upset with what the narrative's going to be, because you're disrespecting what the Raps are doing. Like they still have to come out and hit shots and play. The fact that the Warriors, not named Steph, can't hit shots, that's not the Raptors' fault.
Yeah. It's selective memory, because Game 2, it was all of a sudden, it's Quinn Cook.
Boogie Cousins was the MVP of the game.
But then Quinn Cook misses shots, and it's, the Raptors are just a more talented team. Like, make up your mind. Either Quinn Cook's a player, or he's a scrub. He can't be a player on Tuesday and a scrub on Thursday, right?
Yeah, no, totally.
Right? Quinn Cook was drafted. Fred VanVleet was not drafted. Quinn Cook went to Duke. Fred VanVleet did not go to Duke. He went to Wichita State, right? Yeah. Fred VanVleet's in this game and he's balling. So don't tell me all of a sudden now that Fred VanVleet is a player, but Quinn Cook, because he had a bad game or not as an effective game, is all of a sudden, he's a scrub today. When Quinn Cook had a great game on Tuesday. And, you know what I mean? So it's just it's another thing with some of the media. I have no problem with Van Gundy. I don't like Mark Jackson.
I like them both.
I don't. They play well off each other, and it's entertaining sometimes.
I'm entertained.
But it's stupid people are entertaining too, and he makes some outlandish comments, some just out of place comments, just too much.
But I still always think about how difficult it has to be for Mark Jackson, because you now call every single finals game for the team that you used to coach, and you couldn't get them there. Yeah. Like, how awkward must that be when you really break it down, right? Yeah. Let's get to some more comments, though, because someone else on Twitter says, no matter how shaky Kawhi looks to be initially, he walks away with 30 points. Incredible. I don't know, man. Kawhi didn't look like he has his legs in this game.
No.
How many times did they call timeout and he's kind of just standing there with his hands on his knees? He looked gassed in this game. And he doesn't have the explosiveness. And I keep saying this because 6 out of their last 7 games, the Raptors have won. And in the majority of those games, especially in the Bucks series, though, the key was Kawhi would screen to get on the big guy and blow by every single time. You see him kind of trying to do that in this series, but it's not really working. And there's times where Draymond is guarding him, which should just be a mismatch off rip.
Yep.
He looks like he's a step slow. He looks like he doesn't have the same lift that we saw the guy who dunked on Giannis, who dunked on Embiid. Saw him dunk on Jordan Bell today. Yeah. But it's not the same level, right?
Yeah.
But yet again, he still finishes with 30 points. Are we really taking in what Kawhi Leonard is doing and fully understanding the level that this guy is playing at right now? Because it's stupid. It's kind of disgusting that we're just penciling him in for 30, knowing that my guy's hurt.
Yeah. Everybody's going to say, look at the game that Steph had. And of course, Steph had a great game. Steph is Steph. He makes shots that he shouldn't. as basketball players, you probably shouldn't take. It's a bad shot unless it goes in.
Exactly.
Right? But his goes in.
Yep.
Right? But Kawhi is he's been the best player on the floor in every series during this playoffs.
Yeah.
Right? Night in, night out, he is the best player in, right? Since KD went out, right?
Yeah.
There hasn't been another player, right? There might be times where Giannis had a couple good games, right? But he's been the best player in the NBA.
Yeah.
Right? In these playoffs.
And to further your point, okay, we're going to talk about, Steph Curry had 47 points in this game. Steph Curry looked gassed at the end. He had to do everything for this team, blah, blah, blah. It's like, how many games has Kawhi had to do that these playoffs? Steph still only played 43 minutes in this game. And remember, when we're talking about Kawhi playing the 43 minutes, again, what do I always say? Not all minutes are created equally. So Kawhi is playing the 43 minutes on both ends of the floor. And how many times have we had to see him do that in these playoffs and also be the only guy carrying the offense?
Yep.
Steph Curry has to do it once, and we're going to celebrate him as if he's the greatest thing ever. But if you're the MVP and you still have two other All-Stars and the finals MVP on your squad, you're supposed to go out and get 40 and try to win playoff games, no?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here for the excuses. But it leads us to our next comment here from Diaz, who says, fun fact, KD has a grade 2 calf tear. He is unlikely to return to the NBA Finals according to normal healing time process. Does he have a grade 2 calf sprain? Is that calf tear? I don't remember hearing that. Is that factual? I don't remember hearing that.
I remember the initial diagnosis was the Achilles. Then it was a calf strain.
No, the assumption.
The assumption was the Achilles,
yeah.
based on his reaction, and then it was a calf strain.
Yes.
The whole calf tear and grade 2 calf tear, that I've never heard. But I think you gotta remember, this is basketball, right? So if anybody's ever had, even with the Klay injury, if anybody's ever had a leg injury, that you might wake up Monday and you feel like, oh, everything's great, and then you go to bed and you wake up Tuesday morning and you can barely walk.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't.
Even if he does come back, there's no guarantee that he's able to play one day, have a day off, and then play well the next game.
Exactly.
Look at Boogie Cousins, right?
Yeah.
His movement in this game was way worse than it was the last game. And that's what happens when you're coming off of injuries. And so I'm just trying to read some of what people are saying. Steve Kerr was saying in the postgame. And Tom Haberstroh says, just parsing Steve Kerr's words postgame, but it seems Klay Thompson is closer to returning than Kevin Durant, which kind of seems obvious. Klay was on the bench, looked like he was in uniform, or at least in his warm-ups, and he looks salty, as if he still believed for sure he could have played. But just more of the talk that was going on today about Kevin Durant's status. Monty Poole says, Kevin Durant has had 2 solid individual workouts in the past 2 days. He's progressing, will advance to workout with teammates and staffers on Thursday. That's still not a full team practice, right? So I don't know how that, indicates him playing on Friday, but more comments. Kevin Durant has been increasing his intensity in his workouts. Kerr said Durant could play tomorrow with the young guys and coaches, but the team itself won't practice. So I don't know. They're asking about Durant. Durant said, I will know more in the morning. So clearly it's all just him getting more treatment, trying to work his way back. And I still don't think he's coming back. I still think that it's a case where no matter what, there's a difference between being able to practice and shoot jumpers by yourself and then playing in a full game speed in the NBA Finals against Kawhi Leonard or Pascal Siakam.
Yeah.
Those are 2 different things. I don't know. I just think it's kind of crazy. And if the more likely scenario is Kevin Durant coming into Game 5 in Toronto on Monday, cool. If you're the Raps, you take that, and you don't even care.
Another thing about leg injuries is you will then compensate.
Yeah.
So he's going to then compensate, right? Mm-hmm. What was it? His left leg. Okay, so now his right leg is going to compensate for that left leg, right? And that's when you get bigger injuries. That's when the Achilles does tear, right?
Yeah, yeah. And also the thing is, I think they said that's something that might be going on with Kawhi, that, whatever the injury was on one leg, he now has knee issues with
Yeah.
the other leg from having to overcompensate.
Definitely.
And if you see that, that's from when he was dunking and he was trying to land and you see him land awkwardly. Yeah, that all plays a part. That all plays a role. Yeah. I just think if you're the Raptors, it's a great sign that you won a game and Kawhi Leonard hasn't looked like the Kawhi Leonard from the rest of the playoffs yet. Yeah. That's a positive sign if you're the Toronto Raptors, right? We've been talking a lot about fun facts, and Sean checks in with another fun fact that simply says, fun fact, Raptors 2-1 away from the Larry O'Brien.
It's very fun. It's very fun. I haven't had this much fun in a long time.
Here's a stat from Gordon who says Toronto is 10-0 when they get 115 plus points in a playoff game. Yeah.
You should be. You get 115 points
right?
in a playoff game.
Well, unless you're Golden State or Portland.
Yeah, I guess.
Now Curry knows how James Harden feels when he has to carry the Rockets every game. That's a comment from Twitter. Exactly. This is what I'm saying. Like, Steph Curry, there's no feelings hurt for this team because you built your team based on having all these all-stars. Yeah. And then obviously, that comes at a cost, which means depth. So if one or two of those guys go down, oh no, you still have three other all-stars.
Well, that's the one comment Mark Jackson did make is like, all of a sudden, you can't. We're not going to all of a sudden feel sorry for Golden State, right? You didn't feel sorry for the rest of the league the last 5 years, right?
Exactly.
Everybody was celebrating Golden State. Now, I'm not mad at. I'm a Golden State fan, right? Yeah. I've cheered for Golden State State the last.
Oh, but you were cheering for no. Okay, you're not a Golden State fan. Okay, be honest with the people. You're not a Golden State fan. You're a LeBron hater.
Okay, so I was cheering against LeBron.
Okay,
but I was cheering. But I'm a Kevin Durant fan, right?
Okay.
I think you can. Not be necessarily a fan of Steph Curry, but you can admire Steph and Klay's abilities, right?
Okay.
So yes, I was cheering for Golden State the last 4 years.
It was so funny today on Tim and Sid. I was putting together the Steph Curry Alvin Williams sit down, and it was so funny because obviously, like, I'm in Raptor mode, I'm in wrap it up mode, but putting that thing together and seeing the camaraderie that Steph Curry has with Alvin Williams. Mm-hmm. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, Steph is a nice guy. Hearing him talk about his family, hearing him talk about, watching those Raptor games before when he was a kid and all that stuff. Like, he's a super nice guy. But it's funny, as soon as I was done that interview and it sent off and it went to TV and everything was cool, I'm like, all right, yeah, screw you, Steph Curry. But we got a question here from Neil on Twitter who says, question for the panel. Do you think Golden State doubled down sitting Klay knowing that KD would come back in Game 4? I thought about this, and I think not. I think that if they knew KD was coming back for sure, then they would have played Klay, right? Because it's like, you can risk it. Klay's telling you that he's okay.
Yeah.
You can risk it, knowing that, well, you know what? Even if Klay were to go down, we know Kevin's coming back for sure.
Right.
I think by holding out Klay, you're making sure that he's there long-term because KD might not be there long-term. And you can't go along in this series without Klay and Durant and think that you can beat the Raptors.
Yeah.
What do you think?
My take on that is Golden State, to me, they're a front-running team. Mm-hmm. They're front-runners. This is the NBA Finals. You don't give up a game.
Exactly.
Right? And this is Game 3. This isn't Game 1, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, sit Klay because we're trying to, and let's see what the Raptors are coming with, right?
Yeah.
This is Game 3.
Yeah.
And the Raptors have outplayed you in 7.5 out of the 8 quarters.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think you do that in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, the Raps won every quarter in this game. Right? I know what you're saying.
I mean even
it's
game
a weird,
2, other than that 6 minutes in the third quarter, the Raptors won that game.
Yeah,
right?
A lot of people are making the point. The Raptors could be up 3-0 in this series right now.
Inches. If Kawhi makes that steal, this is 3-0.
It's crazy. But, I mean, that's just a reality of the situation.
Right.
And if you really think about it, the Toronto Raptors in this game, they dominated defensively. Like, there were plays out there that people were showing of their defensive rotations. Yeah. Like, that 16 or 18-0 run that Golden State had in Game 2, a lot of those things, it wasn't like Steph and Klay were banging in threes.
Yeah.
It was like back cuts. It was like the Raptors failing to switch screens, like miscommunication.
And
you
missing
saw
wide open shots.
for sure. I was just talking purely defensively though,
course,
right?
yeah.
And then you look at this game, their rotations were on fire. They knew, okay, we're going to switch all these screens with Steph. How many times did you see Raptors intercept that Draymond alley-oop pass?
Yep.
Like, the one thing you got to give a lot of credit to is Nick Nurse and his staff. This team has been well prepared and made so many great adjustments throughout the playoffs. But just look at their defensive rotations that they made in this game. And I know that's nerdy, in-depth basketball talk or whatever that some people might not realize. But when Draymond drives in 2 straight times, you see Serge intercept an alley-oop pass. Yep. That's scouting. That's
some of those are even. I mean, Fred intercepted one and Kyle intercepted one, so they're ready for it. They know what was going to happen.
Scouting, game plan. Got to give credit to Nick Nurse, who again is a rookie coach. But one thing I always found interesting too is he talked about how he uses his assistants. And normally on certain teams, you have a defensive coach, you have an offensive coach, and that's what it is, right? Like everybody kind of has a role. His big thing was he's going to rotate guys. Right, because he felt as a guy who was an assistant, you're better served as a coach overall if you're well-rounded. Yep. And it also gives guys an opportunity to game plan in a certain way and everyone to feel a part of all game plans. I always thought that was interesting. I remember he talked about that early on in the season. But either way, what those guys are doing, the game plan for the Raps on defense, it's incredible. We didn't see what Steph called janky box and one defense in this game because I don't even think that's a problem. It's math. Steph can get 47. Cool. Where's the next 47 coming from? And you look, Draymond had 17. A lot of that was late. Iguodala had 11. And after that, there's no one else in double figures. Quinn Cook had 9 points. That's the next highest. That's pathetic. That's not going to beat the Raptors.
No.
Another comment here on Instagram. Honestly, if the Raptors close these guys in 5, I don't want to hear Stephen A. Smith ramble about Warriors injuries. No excuses. Another comment, take care of business. Let's get another one in Oakland. Let's pause there for a second because I think that's very key here. Mm-hmm. The thought process is normally just steal one on the road, win your home games, right?
Right.
After you win this game as the Raptors, I'm not talking about the media narrative. Right. I'm talking about in their locker room. How much do you think they're sitting there saying, nope, we're getting one more here. Like we're going back to Toronto trying to close this out. We need to get game 4 as well. How much do you think that is the mentality there as opposed to being like, oh, well, we did our job. We got one at home court. We won this game where everyone was out. What do you think the level of kill is right now in the Raps locker room? I think they're not satisfied with just this.
I think it's 50-50.
Really?
You know why? Because remember, there's a lot of guys that have not been here.
Okay.
Right? And are looking at Golden State like, I want to be that one. So they're still looking at these guys as their stars. Not that here I am playing with these guys and beating these guys, but here we are playing Golden State. I think there are some of the younger guys, Pascal and those guys, who are still kind of starstruck. Okay. And the cameras are on them and they're not fully comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. Now, Kyle, Kawhi, Danny Green, Marc Gasol, I think those guys, and hopefully that they are the calming influence on everybody, are going in there like, guys.
No, we got to get the next one.
Like we should be sweeping these guys. Like there's nothing I've seen other than that spurt in the third quarter where it just looked like there was one team on the court, right?
Yeah.
That I've seen where it's just like you can look at these guys and say we can't handle these guys. Mm-hmm. No, even with Klay on the court.
Yeah, I think the mentality of the Raptors and you seeing the answers that Kawhi Leonard's been giving lately, in terms of were you okay with the ball in the hands of Andre Iguodala at the end? He's like, no, I wanted the ball in our hands. Yep. Like he just seems very matter of fact and like that's just Kawhi Leonard. So it's just, whoever's out there next game, whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah. And further to your point, someone named G's on Instagram says, Klay doesn't change that game. Steph had to compensate. They split the 47. And I know people might think that sounds crazy. And you said that earlier. I kind of agree with that. Like, people forget the beauty of the Golden State Warriors is, Steph can go for 40. Yeah, Klay can go for 40. But because they all play obviously KD can go for 50. But the fact that they all play together means that they don't have to do that consistently.
Right.
That's a way different story than Kawhi having to get to 30 points every night for the Raps to have a chance.
And
it's
I want
just different.
Check the box score. Like when you very rarely see, like I remember there's a couple games where Klay had 50, right? What was Steph's box score of that game?
For sure.
Or if KD's going, right? So yes, they might have 2 at 25, maybe have 2 at 30, right? But those shots, if they're taking those shots, then Draymond's not getting his shots,
exactly.
right? Then Iggy's not getting those shots.
Exactly.
Right?
No,
Quinn Cook's probably not playing. Right?
I agree with that.
So you can't just say, well, they scored 109. If you put Klay in there, he averages 25, so now they get 134. The math doesn't work that way, right? And if you watch, especially the second half, Steph was gassed.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
So
He's not used to playing 40 plus
exactly.
minutes.
So if Klay's in there, Steph doesn't play the 40 minutes. He probably only plays 35.
So does he get 47 points?
Exactly. So now he's down to, right?
For sure. Totally.
Is the ball running through him? Is it pass the ball to Will and let the other guy sits down and watch him cook, right?
Yeah, it was like
Steph
had what, like 12 of their first 14 or 10 of their first 12, like whatever it was. It was all Steph.
And even in their game two win, right? Klay started hot. Steph didn't score anything in the first quarter, right? Then Klay was in foul trouble, so now Steph turned up his game in the second quarter. Yeah. So it was never both of them at the same time, just hitting shots from all angles.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. You're totally right. Let's get to a comment here on Instagram. Alex says, good win, but we have to keep getting contributions from our starters moving forward. Series is far from over. I like that from Alex, and he's totally right. And I mentioned from the other Raptors in terms of Danny Green with 18, Pascal with 18, Marc Gasol with 17, but let's pour some milk for Kyle Lowry. Yeah. Kyle Lowry, 23 points, 9 assists, 5 of 9 from 3, 8 of 16 overall from the floor. And in that fourth quarter,
3 fouls.
Well, early he had some issues.
Yeah. Right? He got all those 3 in the first half.
And they were some bad, like dumb fouls too, for being honest, right? Yeah. He had some against Steph were so far away from the rim, had nothing to do with the play, like just foolish foul calls on Kyle Lowry. But again, Nick Nurse adjusts. We mentioned already, they put Fred to guard Steph at the start of the third quarter. Yep. There's some adjustments that Kyle would still switch on to Steph, but he wasn't the primary defender picking up the cheap fouls, right? But let's talk about Kyle Lowry, because this was the Kyle Lowry game where he's still doing all the Kyle Lowry things, but the key to me, anyways, is Kyle Lowry also passing the ball and getting the assists. The threes are big, the points are big, but the last game, him not being on the floor also meant that he wasn't leading the offense and getting other guys involved. And that stuff is contagious. Yeah. Kyle Lowry, 9 assists. Let's go through this. And I went through the points, but this might be more impressive. Kyle Lowry had 9 assists in this game. Siakam had 6 assists in this game. Kawhi had 6 assists in this game. Gasol had 4 assists. When you're getting that ball movement, that's the Raptors we've seen throughout the year.
That is the unstoppable Raptors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Because, even in a bad shooting game, you're only going to miss. I mean, these are professionals, right? You're only going to miss so many open shots.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when the Raptors are moving the ball, right, and everybody, again, is involved, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they literally have 5 guys that could give you 20.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not a situation where we're just keying on Kawhi because the other guys aren't going to get theirs, right?
Yeah.
You have to rotate to Danny Green, even if he's not hot. You have to rotate to Marc Gasol. You have to rotate to Kyle. You have to rotate to Siakam.
Yep.
Right?
It's crazy.
So you always have the defense off balance.
Yeah. No, always have the defense off balance, and that's when the Raps are playing their best. And the thing from Kyle Lowry in this game, he almost took up the Kawhi mode for a bit there, where the Warriors tried to put Draymond on him, and it looked like Kyle took that as a disrespect because he came down and he just niced Draymond. He had the open 3, up faked him, dribbled, hezzied and hit, the dribble to the left and hit him with the 3 on his head top. Next time down the floor, came, drove in the key, hit him with a step back, like long two. And those are the plays when when Kyle Lowry's taking no shots, you could tell that's where he's feeling nice.
Yeah.
But I also felt like he was just looking up at Draymond like, what? Like, why are you guys thinking that Draymond can guard me? Like, that's not about that life at all. I thought that was super impressive. And when Kyle Lowry is aggressive, the Raps are at their best. Let's see. Len says, I still believe that one elite player surrounded by solid role players is more than enough to win the chip. Agree with that. And if that's Golden State, and if Steph Curry is who you guys tell me he is, which I always said, what y'all flat Russ all the time. And if you put Russ and Steph and switch places and put Steph on some teams with Russ, like, what are we talking about here? The load that Steph has to carry isn't the same as other dudes in the league that you guys tell me Steph Curry is better than. It's not a knock. He's one of the best shooters ever. But there's more to the game.
And again, you're rolling out 5 All-Stars.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so true.
It's almost pick your poison some games, right?
It's so true.
When they're really out there.
I see this comment here that says, amazing to think if we didn't give away game 2, we'd probably be up 3-0. And we talked about that earlier, but I do want to say this. I keep pointing back to the Kenny Smith comment because I always think that it's so relevant, okay? When a championship team blows a game like that, how they respond is so important, because if you're not a championship team, you're going to get down and think, oh no, we blew our chance.
Yep.
That was our chance. We should have taken the game. But if you are a championship team, you look at those situations and you say, oh no, we got these guys. We messed up, but we got these guys.
Yeah.
And we've seen it time and time again. The Toronto Raptors have done that.
And I think this game was a perfect example, because if you look back to game 2, it was Marc Gasol and Pascal who, compared to their game 1 output, who had poor outings, poor numbers, right? And both of them were the ones that came out in the first quarter.
Aggressive. Kawhi wasn't even saying much.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Both of them came out. Both of them came out aggressive. Pascal was the leading scorer at one point, and he was back to driving the ball under control. Right, made a couple shots, made a couple layups. Right. So, without that game 2 performance, without hearing that, maybe this game would have been completely different.
Yeah, no, totally true. And I'm just going to read this comment here from my guy C. Brown, who said, Fred's threes in Draymond's mouth was easily my favorite bucket of the finals thus far.
And it was an and one.
It really was. But again, shouts to the people there on Instagram. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys again on next game, which is Friday night. But for the people still rocking with us and the people who will be listening to this later on in the podcast form on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and on YouTube, first off, huge shouts to you guys. We appreciate you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share and tell your friends and all that other fun stuff.
Most definitely.
Let's get to some comments. And again, shouts to my guy Josh Lewinberg, who puts in gangster work covering the Toronto Raptors. He helps us with some of these post-game clips from the locker room, or from the podium, actually. My bad. Let's see. Where do we start here? Marc Gasol on Van Fleet. He says, quote, Fred has a heart. I don't know how it fits into his chest. He has a huge heart. The job that Fred Van Fleet is doing in this series, well, he's continuing to hit big shots, but also chasing around Steph Curry. That can't go unnoticed, right? Like, someone tweeted the other day that the real MVP of this series is Fred Van Fleet Jr. Because ever since that happened, he's been doing
the playoff MVP. Yeah, I mean, again, Fred Van Fleet is an undrafted free agent who's making a name for himself in this league, right? He's not, he wasn't a second-round pick like Draymond, who just, should have been picked in the first round. He was undrafted. He worked his way up, went to the D League, and now here he is, right? And he's guarding who some think is the best point guard in the league.
Yeah.
And doing that while also being an offensive threat. I'm impressed, right?
Danny Green said that Shaq gave him some shooting advice before the game. Quote, he's a pure shooter. I don't know if you guys knew that. Close quote. Okay. Kawhi on the Game 3 win. Quote, It was big. I'm happy we got it. 2 wins away now. We'll see if the momentum carries over. Shouts to the Kawhi cliches. I'm always here for that. Danny Green on Lowry's big night. Quote, that's why he gets paid the big bucks.
Danny Green's feeling it tonight. He's a joker. Right.
Danny Green got all the jokes. I like it. Big things from the Toronto Raptors in this game. Again, as they win Game 3 in Oracle. Everyone will be talking about no Klay Thompson for the Golden State Warriors. But without Klay, Steph Curry stepped up with 47 points on 14 of 31 shooting, add in 8 rebounds, add in 7 assists, and 2 steals. Solid game from Steph. But other than Steph Curry, none of those other guys want to shoot, which is a theme we've been telling you.
There were no other All-Stars on the court tonight.
Their other dudes, even their other All-Stars, don't really want to shoot. Nope. So we've been telling you that since the start of the series. Those other dudes don't want to shoot. So if the Raptors' other dudes show up, that's who's going to win this series. And that's what happened in this game, as Kawhi was the high man on the Toronto Raptors, 30 points, 9 of 17 shooting. You know Kawhi fills up the stat sheet, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, because that's what Kawhi Leonard does, right? Also getting help as all Raptors starters and Fred VanVleet finish in double figures. Big boy game. Kyle Lowry might be the unsung hero there for the Raps, hitting big-time shots. Same goes for Fred VanVleet, because they did a job of scoring to match Steph, but also bothering Steph.
Yep.
Huge game there. But, again, Raptors win to go up 2-1. Next game is Friday. Q, what are you saying? How are you feeling to wrap things up? And where can the people get at you to get your thoughts in between games? Because we know what's going to happen in between games. It's all going to be, is Klay going to play? Is Durant going to play? All that narrative. Where can the people find you to get your followings of this situation?
Check me out on all social media at simply_just_Q. That's Twitter and Instagram. Or at DDS Caps. Check us out. Check out the Instagram page. We always got highlights and quotes and things going on there. Mm-hmm. Check us out if you like the gear that you see at ddscaps.com. Yeah. I'm feeling good, man. Like I said, I almost catch myself because I'm like, it's the Toronto Raptors against the mighty Golden State Warriors, and I feel very confident.
Yeah.
In this series.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know where it comes from. There's those. It just, like I said, it's the eye test. So we're always talking about the eye test, right? Even when we were down 2-0 to Milwaukee, we talked about the eye test and how we weren't worried. Yeah. It's the eye test. I just don't see where the Golden State Warriors, without Kevin Durant and now a hobbled Klay Thompson, where they get the offense consistently over the next 4 games to beat us.
Well, we said after that last game, you trust in Andre Iguodala not hitting 3-pointers. Yep. And if Quinn Cook's going to hit those shots, you tip your cap. You say, hey, congratulations, Golden State. You are NBA champions. Yep. But if those guys are going to hit the shots, cool. But I'm going to close on this. Kendrick Perkins, who has been taking over the media game. You know, Kendrick Perkins, you're seeing him pop up on a bunch of different shows. We even had him on Tim and Sid today earlier. He says this, quote, from his Twitter account. I witnessed something very scary tonight after the game. Toronto were walking back to their locker room after the game and nobody was celebrating and they weren't smiling or nothing. They boys want all the smoke. Take it from a former champ. I like that. I like that energy.
That's coming from Kendrick.
That's coming from a real dude. We talk to you guys all the time. Hey, there's a bunch of talking heads. A lot of people sitting on their couch, watching TV, talking basketball, what they see, reading stats, all that stuff. But there's certain things that you got to listen to when you hear that come from players because they've been through the smoke. And we talk about it. That calming force that a Kawhi Leonard, a Danny Green, even Gasol, even Kyle Lowry, when he doesn't have to do it all the time, he can pick his spots. Right? That calms down Siakam, who we see gets a little antsy sometimes. It calms down Freddie, who's playing well, but, you know, relaxes him a little. Same thing for a guy like Norm, who's getting spot minutes now.
But that comment right there, that is the Kawhi effect. Right? That's the Kawhi effect. Totally. Because sometimes, I mean, after some of the games he's had in this playoffs, I'm expecting him to go up on the podium, strutting, sitting back. You know what I mean? Like, just giving you that I'm better than you vibe. And you never get it. He sits there, he answers the questions, he gives those Popovich answers.
Yep.
And he's just,
he said
today was great.
Yeah.
I'm ready for tomorrow.
In his one sit down he did like this whole year with Canadian media, he said, he was like, the scream at the end of Game 7 was like the only time you really seen him get emotional.
Yeah.
And look at what it took.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I mean?
Like that's what it took. A Game 7 shot at the buzzer that bounced off the rim 4 times over Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
Right? Other than that, my guy's pretty calm and cool. But that Kendrick Perkins quote, that's, the Raptors want all the smoke. And I love it. Because the other part too, I remember seeing this on Open Gym, which shouts to the guys that do Open Gym. They do an amazing job. And if you ever catch like it's like the behind the scenes of the Toronto Raptors, but they do an amazing job with that. Shout out to all those guys. They do amazing, dope work. But it might have been after the Game 7 game, or maybe after, I think it was a Game 7 game. Because right afterwards in the locker room, you just win this big series. And Kyle Lowry came in the locker room, was like, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. And it wasn't like amped up. He was just like serious focus. Like, we're not done yet. We still got more to do. And seeing that, I was like, okay, these guys are focused. They're not on this happy to be here shit, right? They're not on that happy to be here shit. They're like, no, we're here to win. So Golden State can do whatever they want and hold Klay out, and because we think it's going to be a long series and KD might come back here and there and blah, blah. No. It's not going to be a long series with the Raptors just take care of business and hit their shots. So again, my name is Sheldon Alexander. Huge shouts to the people rocking with us on Twitter, as you have all year long, at Shell Alexander here on the Wrap It Up podcast. Huge shouts to you guys. Same thing goes for the people on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. And again, we package this and it ends up online on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and on YouTube. Just search On Blast Podcast and you'll find the Wrap It Up podcast on that feed. Huge shouts to all the people that have been rocking with us, because I really do appreciate it. And we've been getting a lot of messages throughout the playoffs, people telling us how much they've been enjoying the show and how much, they look forward to it, in the sense that even after losses, we're here as a form of therapy to kind of comfort and be like, don't worry, it's okay, relax, one game at a time. But that to me is the coolest thing, right? Getting all these messages, and the t-shirts are really cool too. And I'll tell you guys something, man, it's been awesome to see how far reaching something like this gets. I've sent shirts to DC, I've sent shirts to Pennsylvania, I've sent shirts to Winnipeg, I've sent shirts to Vancouver, and like, it's just, it's humbling. I'm going to be honest. It's really humbling, but it also just, kind of reassures you that, hey, Raptors fans are out there, Raptors fans are passionate, and that's why we started this, to have a platform to share with you guys. Really appreciate this, and I know I say it at the end of every show, but I really do mean it, because I used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. This is the Wrap It Up on Blast Raps post-game show, as always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.
2 wins away, Toronto. Peace.
On blast.